Namaskaram, and a very good afternoon to you all. I'm Revathi Raju from Ehsaas Women of Bengaluru. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the Right Circle presented by Prabha Khaitan Foundation. We are glad to ignite the Right Circle in Bengaluru and honored to have Mr. Rajdeep Sardesai, a news anchor, reporter, journalist, and an author, to join us today. Rajdeep will be in conversation with our own journalist, Dhanya Rajendran. Please join me in extending a warm welcome to both our esteemed guests. Before we proceed further, I would like to take a moment to say a few words about the organization Prabha Khaitan Foundation. The Prabha Khaitan Foundation is a non-profitable trust committed to humanitarian and socio-cultural causes. Late Dr. Prabha Khaitan established it as a charitable trust in the early 1980s. Based in Kolkata, it is committed to supporting women's empowerment, gender equality, literature, culture, and performing arts. Late Dr. Prabha Khaitan was an eminent Indian literate, philanthropist, social worker, entrepreneur, and feminist, who established the foundation and believed unity in diversity. The foundation's multifaceted initiatives include the Right Circle, Kalam, Kitab, and Author's Afternoon. Well, it's quite difficult for me as a Bangalorean or a South Indian. Shabd, Ek Mulaqat, Teta Tea, The Universe Writes, Chaupal, Rahat, Karuna, Muskan, and boutique festivals like Shehernama and Ramayan Kala Utsav. These fall under the diverse verticals of literature and language, culture and heritage, and social welfare and women empowerment. The Right Circle, an initiative by Prabha Khaitan Foundation, serves as a vibrant platform within the foundation's literary endeavors. This initiative was created to bring together authors and readers of English literature in a close, engaging, and informal setting. Each session is thoughtfully crafted around the life and works of the featured author, culminating in an interactive dialogue with the discerning audience. We are elated to share that three-time Grammy Award winner Ricky Cage, the man behind the anthem and signature caller tune of Prabha Khaitan Foundation, has curated 12 amazing musical pieces to score across video invites of the events and social media platforms, as well as for pan-India and overseas communications. To create awareness in the community, we uphold one pressing social issue every month. The music of the month for December is Celebrating the Past, Welcoming the Future. December is the month for celebrating the wonderful year gone by and to hope for an even better new year. Now, allow me to introduce to you all the author. Although he needs no introduction, his work and achievements truly speak for himself. Rajdeep Sardesai is an award-winning senior journalist, author, and TV news presenter. Currently the consulting editor and lead news anchor of the India Today group, he has over 3 decades of journalistic experience in print and television. He was a founder editor of the IBN 18 network, and before that was the managing editor of NDTV 24/7 and NDTV India. He has won more than 50 awards for journalistic excellence. Rajdeep's books on the Indian election, 2019, How Modi Won India, 2014, The Election That Changed India, have been national bestsellers. He has also authored The Democracy 11. The Great Indian Cricket Story. His latest book, 2024, The Election That Surprised India, released recently. Today's conversationalist, Dhanya Rajendran, is a co-founder and the editor-in-chief of the News Minute, a digital publication that covers South India. In a journalism career spanning 20 years, Dhanya has been a body of work focusing on politics, human rights, gender-based violence, and disaster coverage. Dhanya was the recipient of the Chameli Devi Jain Award, the Best Women Journalist of India in 2022. She is also the recipient of the Reading Journalist of the Year 2023 by the Mumbai Press Club. Without further ado, I welcome Dhanya to kickstart the conversation with Mr. Rajdeep Sardesai. Thank you.
In conversation today is journalist Rajdeep Sardesai, who's just released his new book, 2024, The Elections That Surprised India. Welcome to the conversation, Mr. Rajdeep.
Thank you very much, Dhanya, and thank you very much for having me here in Bengaluru. It is a lovely city, especially at 7 a.m. in the morning when I went this morning for a walk. That's before the traffic sets in. There's a Bengaluru before the traffic sets in that is quite incredible. The air is fresh, it's cool, and a lot of it is everything Delhi isn't.
Yes.
So it's nice to be here.
So in fact, in my office, I tell them that if they do not perform well, I will give a punishment transfer to Delhi. So the book says The Election That Surprised India. You wrote this book when the Lok Sabha elections were out, and after that we have seen Haryana, we have seen Maharashtra. So has the surprise now waned? And why? What did you mean by an election that surprised India?
Look, Dhanya, this book was written over a period of 2023 and 24, eventually came out in November. Since the Lok Sabha, we've had elections in Haryana and Maharashtra in particular. Don't forget Jharkhand and Jammu and Kashmir. 2 states won by the BJP, 2 states won by the opposition. But the reason why I called it the election that surprised India in 2024, the Lok Sabha, was there was a general feeling that this was a done deal, that the BJP was going to be close to 400, break records, especially after the Ram Mandir inauguration at the start of the year. There was a sense of almost a euphoria on the side of BJP supporters and a sense of resignation among opposition that this election is over. And therefore, when the results came out, I think there was a questioning suddenly. Did we grossly misread the election? Whether it was pollsters, whether it was journalists, whether it was the public, whether it was political parties. I recall a senior leader of the opposition telling me in March of 2024, there's no point even fighting this election. You can't fight Ram. And at the end of the day, maybe the voters of India across different states felt differently. And that's why I think this was a unique election. It reflected what I call in the book the diversity dividend. India is the most diverse country in the world. And sometimes we underestimate the power of that, or sometimes we take it for granted. And I think we are seeing that even in the state elections that you mentioned. On the same day that Maharashtra gave a resounding victory to the BJP-led alliance, Jharkhand gave a resounding victory to the India-led alliance. On the same day that Haryana, the BJP edged home in an election that I believe was a complete Congress self-goal, Jammu and Kashmir saw the resurgence of the national conference. So, in India, that's what makes India incredible. And therefore, I thought, given the backdrop of all that had happened this year, this whole Modi mania, if I may use the word, focus on the Prime Minister right through the first half of the year, I think the elections have shown that never underestimate the Indian voter. I think the Indian voter surprised us and surprised even the opposition and the government.
But if I can just take it a step further, the reason why you said that these are the elections which surprised India is also because there was an aura of invincibility as far as the BJP was concerned, and that aura was broken. But somehow Maharashtra and Haryana have again brought forward that thought that that these people are too well organized, that election is a machinery that they are able to overcome every time?
Absolutely. Look, you could argue even that 2024 in that sense, Lok Sabha was an aberration. I won't go that far just yet. But I think what it showed, both Maharashtra and Haryana, is that the BJP is the most formidable election machine this country has ever seen. It's ruthless, remorseless, resourceful, and remarkably successful. Because it has made elections so highly competitive and put so much of energy and effort into election management that the other side is just not able to cope with it. You know, I liken it to a Ferrari and a Fiat. You know, the BJP now is like a new age Ferrari, and the opposition, especially the Congress at times, in certain parts of the country looks like an old age Fiat. And therefore, having said that the BJP is the most formidable election machine that we've seen in post-independent India, let me also add that we don't have a level playing field in this country in elections anymore. Whether it's money power, whether it's media power, whether it's institutional power, one side has a huge advantage over the other. It's like a 100 meters race where one side is starting from meter number 80 and the other from 0. And I think that's why it was even more remarkable what happened in the Lok Sabha. Because when one side has such a big advantage and there isn't a level playing field, then, you know, even that formidable election machine that it is, makes the BJP that much more difficult to defeat. If it was a level playing field, I think you would have an even more competitive election than we have.
But isn't that dangerous to the democratic system? Because you're saying there's a Ferrari versus the Fiat. And if that goes on, then there is never going to be a level playing field except in certain states. And we are going to continuously see this one powerful election machinery always trumping the other. What is the solution?
You know, before I come to the solutions, I think you're absolutely right. I think we as Indians should be at least pushing to ensure a level playing field to whatever extent possible. I mean, I think the biggest distortion taking place in our politics, and we are in Karnataka, where again we see this distortion, is money power. Money power has distorted Indian elections like one has never seen. I mean, in Maharashtra, I know a few of the MLAs personally. They told me off the record they were spending between 40 to 50 crores. Now, some have even spent even more. And I'm talking of 40 to 50 crores. One of them told me was just in ensuring he was in a position to, if necessary, buy votes. Throw the money at people in that last week, which is the key week. Now, that's a lot of money. And how are you going to end that money power in the first instance? Because without there being some check on this sort of untrammeled use of money, it's a vicious circle that you find yourself in. Because if I invest 40 to 50 crores in an election, I want a return of at least double or triple of that. And you're seeing in state after state, just look at the way assets of our elected politicians increase every 5 years. You know, it's whopping. The amounts are, it's recession proof. You and I, in COVID times, we have had falling incomes. People have had incomes plateauing, not our politicians. And this is across states. And that is where I think the real reforms must come in. You see, the Election Commission, sadly, has completely abandoned what its principal duty should be to ensure a level playing field. They've surrendered that, they've surrendered the constitutional duty that they have. Instead, we are looking at the wrong kind of reforms. One nation, one election is not going to change money power. We need to find ways in which we can make funding more transparent, in which there can be complete checks on how political parties are using money power. I don't know what the solution is, but there at least needs to be an effort that must be made by all political parties to come together to take a call on this. Because the problem I have is that these political parties will never bite the hand that feeds them. You see, it suits them at the moment to allow this money power to continue in this non-transparent manner. But surely a stage must come when thinking people will say enough is enough. Institutions must push back. You see, the problem is institutions are not pushing back. If institutions, whether it's courts, media, election commission itself, if they pushed back and said, look, we are going to monitor the way you're doing elections, and if we find that you're overspending, it's ridiculous. The actual amount, I think, is 45 lakhs Lok Sabha, 90 lakhs
That's for the candidate, but the party can spend.
And the party can spend, yes. So you have to have a check now on party expenses. You know, I was driving from Mumbai to Nashik to Mumbai during the Maharashtra election. Trust me, every hoarding at 10 meters was a large BJP hoarding of Ladki Bahin. So I rang up an opposition leader. I said, aren't you all fighting this election? Because I don't see any hoardings of an opposition party. They said, you see what has happened? 3 months ago, the BJP booked all the hoardings. So I said, what were you doing? He said, no, they agreed to pay twice what is the sort of rate for a hoarding on the highway. Now, we could argue that, jo jeeta wo Sikandar. We live in a world where whatever it takes, you want to win an election. Sam, dam, danda, bhed. I'm not sure in an ideal world that's the way to go ahead. I can understand this winner takes all mentality is today's credo. But in the long run, I think it distorts and damages our democracy, because I'll just get, the number of people from the real estate sector, I don't know whether there are some in this audience, but, you might want to get into politics. Because across states like Maharashtra, Karnataka, where we are, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, who are the people entering politics? It's people largely from the real estate sector who have easy access to cash. And it's completely distorting the ability of, let's say, a very young, talented individual working at a party level to enter electoral politics. There's a huge barrier now. Unless you have that big, in most instances, there are a few exceptions that I highlight in the book, but by and large, you need huge amounts of money to fight Indian elections. And that, I think, somewhere will distort democracy. I only say this half in jest. If Mahatma Gandhi fought an election today, he might lose his deposit. Because he just wouldn't have the money power to match the other side sometimes. And that's troubling. If people who are otherwise ethically strong cannot contest elections. We are even seeing parties like Aam Aadmi Party, which came into power and people said, it's going to bring a change in the way elections are fought. They've also had succumbed to the temptation of needing big money to fight elections. They have no option today. And then, as I said, return on investment is such that is where corruption starts. The fount of this corruption that besets all of us is actually electoral politics.
But also have elections become very unpredictable to even say that, okay, this party is going to win or not. In the book, you have said that Haryana, when you went to Haryana, you thought there is a lot of anti-incumbency. I remember watching a video of yours where you were in a fish market, I think in Andhra Pradesh, and you were asking a lot of people, who are you voting for? And they were not very clear about whether it's Jagan or Naidu. And you made a comment that people are either not saying or they're undecided. That's the same thing I felt when I traveled through Andhra Pradesh, that there's not a wave that you can see. But look at the election results, right? Jagan could not even win enough to become the opposition in that state. So are we getting elections wrong, or have elections become very unpredictable now?
It's a tough question to answer, because you're right, every election surprises us. In Maharashtra, I thought that the Mahayuti, the ruling party, would win, but I didn't think they would win by such a big margin. Haryana, I was convinced that the Congress was winning. And I'm still trying to get my head around how they lost. It's a series of self-goals that they scored, including, not addressing the issues of leadership, of internal party rebellion, of organization. These are all issues that trouble the opposition. But look, Dhanya, we are a 97 crore electorate, 97 crore, out of which let's assume that about 60, 65, 68% vote. That's about 65 crore Indians voting. How do you and I predict, sitting in a fish market in Andhra Pradesh or wherever else, what is going to be the mood of the rest of the state? You see, I think we as journalists should stop predicting. We should just report.
We don't, but I will come to the predictions.
I am trapped in TV because we have this exit polls. Everybody says, please tell us what your exit polls are saying. A lot of my friends are in Mumbai, my school friends, and they dabble in the market. I say, look, I switch off my phone for those 24 hours because I will not tell you what our exit polls are saying. But there's so much of interest to know 2 days before the actual results, what are the exit polls going to say? And it's bizarre because the exit poll is not the final number. But yet there is so much of interest in what is the exit poll saying. I think exit polls should slowly exit till such time as they get their methodology right. You know, there are a lot of fly-by-night operators who are becoming exit pollsters. It's nice TV tamasha, but it's not the real thing. You see, in the US and other parts of the world, the counting starts almost as soon as the polling is over. In India, you've got this 48-hour gap. And that gap can, lead to speculation. So I think exit pollsters are part of the problem. Journalists who predict elections and say, I know exactly what people want, are part of the problem. Because Indian elections, as I said, Dhanya, at the start are so competitive. How do I know how many independents will get how much vote? This is what happened in Haryana. Haryana, the BJP very cleverly put up a lot of independents, sponsored them, so that the vote against them got divided. So if there was a strong Jat candidate of the Congress, they put up 12 other Jats. And all of them were independents. Now, how do I know which independent will get how much votes? Against Vinesh Phogat, she just squeezed home in the end, but there were about 10, 12 independents contesting against her. So Indian elections have become very competitive. And the BJP has mastered the art of this last mile booth connectivity, targeting the last mile voter, even doing some things that some may again think is unethical. For example, if there is a candidate called Rohit Pawar, they will put up 5 other Rohit Pawars there as independents, some of whom even look like the original Rohit Pawar. So when I go on that ballot, when I go through the roll, I am very confused. Who is the real Rohit Pawar this happened in Maharashtra? Rohit Patil. Rohit Pawar is another candidate, but there was a Rohit Patil. There were 5 others by that name. How do I know which one to vote for? So, the Indian elections have become more and more difficult to predict because they are now so competitive.
But is that the only problem? Like, for example, in whatever you said, I can point out so many issues on how elections should not be conducted, right? For example, the opposition, or there are a lot of people who after every election may cast doubts on the voting process on the EVMs, but since we do not have the proper proof for that. But there are so many other things that are happening, voter deletion, voter suppression. Like you said, simple things, it may sound funny, but it's actually serious if your vote is getting cut because there are 10 people who have your name, right? So in so many other ways, India's elections are being compromised.
Absolutely. I'll give you one example that is troubling me now, and I still haven't got a response from the Election Commission of India. Between June and October in Maharashtra, 40 lakh voters were added. 40 lakh new voters were added between June and October. In the previous 5 years, 32 lakhs were added. How is it that in 5 months, 40 lakhs were added, previous 5 years, 32 lakhs? Now, I still haven't got a clear answer from the Election Commission. Maybe there's an answer, but it is linked somewhere to the lack of transparency. I think we need a proper audit. There should be an audit before and after the elections on the electoral rolls, on all the concerns that whoever loses or the opposition party has. We've now taken it for granted. EVMs are there, winner takes all, without any proper auditing. And because of the problems you mentioned, voter suppression, voter deletion, voters' names being added, there is a lack of confidence and trust in this process. And I think we should be worried as a people because we have taken great pride as a country that we have a free and fair election process. And truth of the matter is the process is perhaps not as free and fair and needs, like everything in life does, maybe some kind of review. What is the harm in reviewing an election process to ensure that everyone in this room and everyone across this country gets greater confidence in the process? Why should a village in Maharashtra say we are going to now again have a re-poll because we don't trust the verdict? You see, it cannot also be that every time you lose you blame EVMs and when you win you're okay. Now that cannot also be the solution. We need a solution wherein there is an auditing of the process and that auditing must be made public. What's the harm? If you have nothing to hide, why don't you make the process more transparent? But if you or I ask any questions to the Election Commission, we will hit a brick wall. They're not willing to answer questions. Now, if you're not willing to answer questions, I will then continue to raise doubts. Now, one doubt that I raised in the book, 543 Lok Sabha constituencies, in 537, votes polled don't match votes counted. Now, the margin may be 1,000, 2,000 votes only, but you must explain to me, it's a perfect process, I thought. If EVMs are so perfect, why should votes polled and votes counted not be matched properly? Now, this was raised by ADR, Association of Democratic Reforms, which has a Bengaluru chapter headed virtually from here. Why didn't the political parties raise it? You see, politicians need to come together, I think every 10 years at least, to say that, and across the world, people are moving from EVMs back to ballot boxes in many parts of the world. Because maybe anything that is controlled by a machine, the fear is who knows whether there's some hidden hand somewhere. The VV-pad has a symbol loading unit. Now, is that symbol loading unit something that perhaps needs to be relooked at in some way? Should we have 100% VV-pad? Have one election where you do an EVM count and also have a proper paper trail. Nothing wrong. India has enough time. We want to convert even counting into a T20 match. I want the election result now. Do it over 3 days, if necessary. If that, as used to be in the past. Do whatever it takes to restore, I believe, public confidence completely in the election process. It will help for the future. I'm not saying this from any one party's viewpoint or other. It's very interesting. When the BJP lost in 2009, a book was written by a BJP leader, GVL Narasimha Rao, with a foreword by LK Advani, saying EVMs, there's something wrong with EVMs. 15 years later, Congress is saying there's something wrong with EVMs. I'm saying if both of you have a problem when you lose, come together and find a better system so that neither of you have a loser's lament and the voters also feel, chalo yaar, at least the voting has been done in a free and fair manner. Because these numbers that I'm throwing at you, 40 lakh new voters, all of this needs some kind of forensic examination. Otherwise, a stage will come when one day, who knows, opposition will say we are boycotting the election. This is what happens in countries like Bangladesh. People say, we don't have any faith in your process, we will boycott the elections. Let's not even think or contemplate that situation will come. Let's preempt it with a more proactive election commission.
So when we ask for accountability from the election commission, you have been saying that we need a better process, right? I personally feel that the media has not done its job in asking questions. For example, when the Karnataka elections were happening here, we reported on how voters are being their profile is being taken and perhaps they're being deleted. The Election Commission of India was forced to act because there was proof. We provided proof, and in 3 constituencies of Bangalore, because of the work that we did, the Election Commission said there should be a check of the electoral poll, of the electoral list, of the voters list. So if the media also has taken a step back, the media also treats the election now as a T20 match. So when we have not done our jobs well, for example, when the case is in the Supreme Court saying why can't all VVPATs be added, the media did not even add to a conversation in this country. So how has the mainstream media actually let India down?
The media is the elephant in this room. Har room mein hathi hota hai, and the media is one of those elephants in the room. You all did sterling work during the Karnataka elections in exposing how private agencies had access to this data, which they were then selling virtually to political parties of voter identity, which is extremely dangerous. I mean, why should a private agency in the first instance get access to this data of voters and then be in a position to virtually sell it to a political party? And the Election Commission didn't seem to know till you all exposed that story. Look, I think the media, particularly the so-called mainstream media, has simply got carried away at times with just the surround sound, without doing the kind of forensic examination that will be needed. As I said, I've just thrown one number today at you at 40 lakhs new voters added. Now we need to go take the next step. Who are these 40 lakh voters? How did suddenly so many voters come up in a state like Maharashtra? These are questions to be asked. As I said, there could well be some answers that the Election Commission may have. But if we don't ask questions, we won't get answers. I think the problem is we are increasingly unquestioning and uncritical of those in authority. Far too many people in authority across institutions in this country get away with it. I'll give you another example which I raise in my book. In fact, I haven't spent enough time in my book on Election Commission, and I maybe in a future book should do that, or maybe someone more capable will do that. But I'll give you an example of how many people died during COVID. World Health Organization puts the figure in India at more than 40 lakhs. Official Indian government figures are somewhere between 4 and 5 lakhs. Now look at the difference. World Health Organization is putting it at 40 lakh plus. Just look at, and again the media in some states did a very good job. For example, in Gujarat, the Dainik Bhaskar compared the deaths deaths reported in previous non-COVID years with deaths reported in COVID years. And they found a huge jump in the number of people who had died in that period between April and June in the state of Gujarat. But the government still wasn't willing to accept that maybe many more people died in COVID. Now, surely in death, Indians need to know or deserve to know how many people died. Many people in this room or anywhere must have had friends, relatives who died during COVID. Do we not as a nation deserve the right to know? What is wrong? What is so harmful in telling people the truth? My problem is it's almost as if sometimes truth telling is a sin. Because it might expose your incompetence, or it may put a black mark on your CV that you were not able to stop COVID deaths. Now these are the questions that Indians need to know, and asking them is not a sin. And some journalists have done so even during COVID, but the answers are not forthcoming. Our system is not transparent enough and willing to accept maybe that COVID deaths were far more than what the government figures show.
I would say COVID coverage was an aberration for the Indian media. But I want to quickly move on to the next topic, which you did touch upon, exit polls. Why do we have exit polls? Is it just a TV spectacle? And I want to ask one more question. How much money rides on exit polls? What is the kind of money that TV channels make? Because in your book, you are giving me some insight, but you're an insider and you're not giving me enough insight. Therefore, I'm asking you this question. Why do we have exit polls? What is the kind of money riding on exit polls?
Look, I've reported what happened during the exit poll. I've even suggested how, if you recall, the day after the exit poll, there was a huge spike in the stock markets. And eventually there was this crash, and there was this whole question whether maybe people in the markets knew exactly what the pollsters were going to say. And I pointed out the conflicts of interest. You have pollsters who are polling for TV channels and also polling for a political party. Now, if your primary client is a political party, and then you're also offering the data to a news channel, there is a huge conflict of interest, right? And I think that needs to be addressed.
No, but that has to be addressed by you all.
Yes,
because you are the ones who are putting the exit polls
out. That's right.
out.
So, you see, you mentioned, is it a TV spectacle? At one level it is. There is absolutely no doubt that it is, drumbeat, excitement is being generated, 100 hours polling, we will have an exact poll. There is a bit of tamasha. Let's not run away from that. There is an element of tamasha. And I think, for example, we didn't do an exit poll this time during the Maharashtra election. So I think we've learnt our lessons. We've realized that, all we are doing is further eroding our own credibility. When we get it right, we dance. And I've danced in the studio with our pollsters, most embarrassingly. So I think I am part of the problem, not the solution. But I think we've all realized that it's important to take a step back. Realize that exit polls are not exact polls. That, yes, it could be one guide to what could happen. We need to put a statutory warning running right through the These are exit polls. Kindly do not take them as the final result. We need to put that. Beyond that, it's for the viewers to decide, switch off.
No, but
I don't think across the world, Dhanya, there are exit polls. Please, let's not say UK has it, US has it. It is not an illegitimate form of gathering information or forecasting. It's just that we are not doing it well enough, perhaps. Or, as I said, there are fly-by-night operators, or there are people with stark conflict of interest. If I am polling for a political party and also giving those numbers to a news channel, I should transparently say, please, I also polled for the BJP. I mean, we did say in our program that our pollster at the time, Pradeep Gupta, also polls for the BJP. Please keep that in mind. I've never hidden that from the public. Now, if you go into and watch those numbers with the knowledge that he's also polling for the BJP, then it's for you to decide, do you want to invest in the stock market based on him? That is a call. I can't stop the viewer or the reader from taking those calls. All I can do is provide information. But yes, on hindsight, I think we need to just take a step back from exit polls and say, yeah, let's wait for results day. And I hope that the results day is not a T20 match. I believe this counting process needs to also become a little bit more exhaustive. and transparent.
So, because we are on the media, another question I want to ask is, one thing the BJP has been sort of successful across all states is in for othering Muslims, whether it's this jihad or that jihad or the other jihad, from the state of Kerala to everywhere, there are different things that the BJP brings up which has helped in othering Muslims to a large extent. But unfortunately, the media also plays a role in this, especially TV media, both in English and in Hindi. How do you look at that?
Dhanya, you're going to engage in TV bashing.
No, but I want to ask your opinion as an insider.
Look. Again, this I have addressed in my book. And I give the example in the book of COVID again. A conference and the rise in COVID cases. There was no clear such connection at all. Because COVID was by then spreading across the country, not just in some pocket of Delhi. But the way the media projected it, they put a hashtag calling it Corona Jihad. To the point where Tabligis were being even picked up, were being locked up, were being detained at least. And more worryingly, the message spread out somehow that don't trust Muslims who may well be Tabligis. And in some colonies, vegetable vendors who were Muslims found themselves being economically boycotted. I found that hugely troubling, because that is precisely where the point you make, the othering, the demonization. Don't just blame TV media for it. I saw it on social media. I saw social media trends, hashtags coming up, because social media has become even more vicious. In many ways, there is no control over social media at all when it comes to such othering of a community. And then, interestingly, 1 year later, Kumbh Mela takes place. In March of 2021, just before the second wave of COVID, I didn't hear anybody say Kumbh Jihad, right? And that was patronized by the state. The state went ahead, despite clear rules on social distancing for the rest of us, to have a major Kumbh Mela, which could have easily been postponed, given what was happening. So, there the double standards come out so starkly. And we've reached a stage where this othering now is, according to me, the biggest sin that the mass media is committing. I'll give you an example. I dread to think. For example, there was this terrible rape in a hospital in Kolkata, in RG Kar. I just dread to think, what if the rapist was a Muslim? How would the narrative have changed? And are we going to decide the crime on the basis of the religious identity of a criminal? Rapists come from every community, every state. It's an awful problem in a country like India, crimes against women. The worst thing we can do, and actually to the woman and her family, is also look at some of these instances from the identity, the religious identity of the rapist. And we've seen that. There was another case, I think, where an individual had cut his girlfriend.
It happened in Delhi, and then it happened in Bangalore.
Yeah, and again, again you had to sort of almost, people were judging the horrificness of the crime based on...
But it didn't happen in Bangalore because it was not a Muslim.
Because it was not a Muslim. Now that cannot be the basis for judging the horror of a crime. And that is where I think the mass media has got it horribly wrong. You see, politicians will do what politicians have. They will do Sam Dam Danda Bhed. Don't expect them to change tragically. But you and I need to also be very conscious of the fact that we in the mass media cannot allow young, impressionable minds to be influenced in such way. You see, the mass media at times is bringing out the worst in us, not the best in us.
But is there a pushback in the newsroom? You do write an entire chapter on the media and the government. You do make hints at how there's pressure on the newsroom.
More than hints.
Yeah, and sometimes you have also given examples of when that pressure has come. But what I want to ask is, in the newsroom, when you're all discussing this, is there a pushback from within the newsroom?
There is and there isn't. There is in the sense that there are people who push back. I hate to see people shout, "Sab neta chor hai." That's not true. There are a lot of people in public life who are trying their best to try and ensure that, public life can be improved. Similarly, there are a lot of people within the newsroom also who are deeply uncomfortable with this kind of othering of Muslims. I have Muslim friends sometimes in the newsroom, and I can see somewhere that they are deeply uncomfortable. I find it tough to look at them at times in the eye. Because why should a young Muslim today be held responsible for what happened 300 and 400 years ago? So there are those who are looking for a pushback, but it's not easy only because, you see, the environment has got so toxified, so polluted, that we are always looking over our shoulder. What is the other channel doing? What is the other newsroom doing? Who is saying what? And we are in the process normalizing hate. My biggest concern, and I know this is a very polite gathering of fine Bangaloreans, Indian citizens, is somewhere all of us are allowing a kind of hate politics to get normalized. Looking for a hidden enemy. I make this point that when I joined journalism in 88, 89, there used to be a slogan, जो हिंदू हित की बात करेगा वही देश पे राज करेगा. And I was uncomfortable. Maybe it was the way I was educated. I just thought जो भारतीय की बात करेगा, भारतीय की हित की बात करेगा वही देश पे राज करेगा. But the slogan was Hindu hit. Today that is a mainstream slogan. You know, today people will say, हाँ यार होना चाहिए. It's a Hindu nation. I like to. I mean, maybe I'm at odds with this. I believe this is the greatest country in the world, Dhanya, because it is a country which is so diverse. We should, we should embrace India's diversity. This is what makes this country special. I was coming on the roads of Bengaluru. I saw on one side there's a church, another side there was a mosque, third place there will be a temple, and that is India. You know, this is why this country is, to my mind, so precious. You come to South India, the food changes, the language changes. You go to another part within the south of India, the language, your state of Kerala, just look at the unique diversity. But it is very easy, I believe, to spread hate. And, there's a dialogue, I think, from Bajrangi Bhaijaan. Nafrat phailana bahut aasan hai, pyar baatna mushkil. And I think, somewhere we have to understand the meaning of that. It's not easy to fight the forces of hate, particularly when they get linked to religion. Because we are all, number of Hindu, you have every right to feel, to celebrate your religion or your religious identity. But when that is used as a weapon to target someone else, then there is a problem. It's a fine line. Within Hinduism, there are so many wonderful traditions. I went once to the Kumbh Mela many years ago, the Mahakumbh. And I was just struck by the diversity within Hinduism. Koi Naga sadhu is there having his kheer and whatever, pure milk. Somewhere there is a lady doing some different kind of puja. But they are all part of this unique. Now, do we want to, in a way, damage our diversity? And I think a newsroom needs to also recognize the importance of diversity. And therefore have many more voices. We don't have enough, I believe, Dalit voices in newsrooms. We don't have enough Adivasi voices in newsrooms. How do I know what a Dalit is going through? Now there are Dalit youngsters who are bringing out very good websites, reflecting their anger, their pain. One of them told me, when I was growing up in school, one Adivasi boy, when I was growing up in school, I was never invited to parties by my schoolmates. Now this is in a part of rural Rajasthan. But, that's a reality. As I said, in polite gatherings like this, we may say, what is this caste and what is... but these are real issues that people have been confronted with. Let's find ways to accept each other, embrace each other, rather than pit one against the other. And that's what our politicians do. We in the media should be moving away from that. I've given you a long answer because I'm trying to sort of assuage my own guilt in a way over the years of not perhaps having done enough to maybe build bridges. We should be bridge builders, not building walls.
I want to end the session by asking a final question about a man who's not been mentioned in the entire conversation, Narendra Modi. You've
not mentioned Narendra Modi, you've not mentioned Rahul Gandhi. Good.
Yeah, because I thought every other conversation is about
Absolutely.
Rahul Gandhi and Narendra Modi.
I'm glad you haven't.
Yes. But the final question will be about Narendra Modi. In the book, you do write that his oratorial skills, the fact that he's from OBC community, his managerial skills in bringing a party together, all that has worked. But when you hit the ground in 2024, do you feel that all this still works for Narendra Modi, or has that phenomenon gone down a bit?
Okay, I'm going to give, again, a slightly longish answer because, I started journalism in 88 and I met Mr. Modi first in 1990 at the Rath Yatra that he was organizing the Gujarat leg of. Since then, our relationship has gone up and down. In the last few years, mainly down. But over the years, we were,
So down that there was a police case.
no, I'm not blaming him for filing a sedition case against me. But look, when you've covered a politician for more than 3.5 decades, there can be highs and lows. And therefore, my answer to Narendra Modi's politics is also more complex. I don't like to reduce it to black and white. Look, he's quite a remarkable politician at one level. To consistently win every election for more than 2 decades where he's been on the ticket is not an, is quite an extraordinary achievement in some way, because even this year, look at the number of incumbents who lost, whether it was the Democrats in the US, whether it was the Conservatives in the UK. Post-COVID, most governments have found it very difficult to get re-elected. Mr. Modi did. He may have got 240, but he's still the Prime Minister of this country. He's a consummate election campaigner. He's a consummate communicator. And he has the ability to connect with specific audiences. Cannot be denied. I think we must accept his strengths. But there are weaknesses too. The problem is, in India today, we are so polarized that, are you with Modi or against Modi? Ab aise nahi hota hai na. There may be, he has certain things which are his strengths, which you've got to appreciate, because he is in politics. He's a power politician. You and I may be uncomfortable with some of the things he says and does, but he's there to acquire power. I think he was also there, luckily for him, at the right place at the right time. Manmohan Singh had completed 5 years, his second half of the 10 years, the 5 years between 2009-14, was seen as leading a weak, effete, and dare I say, corrupt government. That's what India against corruption successfully managed to do. Even though I don't believe Dr. Singh Dr. Singh himself is among the most incorruptible people I have ever met in public life. Quite remarkable in the way he has lived his own life. But the impression went on, along comes Mr. Modi and says, I'm going to give you a corrupt-free government. So from a sort of coalition, effete, weak Manmohan Singh, he was seen as a weak prime minister, you come across to chappan ki chhati hu main. An Indian said, okay, we want a strong man. And he's going to get everything right. So he was there at the right place at the right time. Plus, remember, he was confronted with Rahul Gandhi, fifth generation dynast. So he said, "Arey, ye to parivar hai. I have no parivar. I am a chai wala ka beta." It was a perfect enemy. If you had to choose a cricket match for a perfect opponent, Modi would always choose Rahul Gandhi. He's the perfect bowler to bat against for him. So he was there at the right place at the right time. But I think some of the forces that he has unleashed in terms of centralizing politics, that all decision making is concentrated around him and the Prime Minister's office, to the point where whether it's Parliament reduced to a notice board, whether it's the media which is being strangulated in different ways, whether it's the judiciary which appears to become pliable, I think all of this is dangerous for democracy. So, that's why I said I could give an even longer answer if I had more time. But the truth of the matter is that you've got to see politics in a more complex way than black and white. Mr. Modi is a complex figure. He's a strong man, but he's also a narcissist, obsessed with himself and his own image. He knows how to use technology to deliver last mile, with his welfare schemes and using the jam trinity, Jan Dhan, Aadhaar, mobile, very successful in scaling it up, even in terms of infrastructure, very clear in targets, in terms of micro-planning some of those targets. At the same time, he's also someone who's allowed religious divisiveness to grow. So how do I, he's a complex figure.
I have noted down some of the things that you have said. Characteristic vindictiveness, domineering, high-handed, bellicose politician.
He is. He's all of that also. He's all of that. He's deeply vindictive.
But still he works when it comes to India's elections, and as you travel, you feel Narendra Modi, the name, still works.
Oh, absolutely. You see, because I think you're also only as good as your opposition is. And the opposition in this country has just not got its act together for the last decade. They come across as squabbling with each other. They come across as lacking any coherent narrative other than anti-Modiism. Now look at what has happened. 6 months ago, Aam Aadmi Party and Congress come together for the Delhi elections. Now there's a Delhi state election, they are fighting each other. How do I as a voter then trust them? If the same group which comes 6 months ago and say, we are an India alliance, we are fighting for preserving democracy. 6 months later, you're fighting each other. It doesn't resonate. You see, you're going to need, the opposition is, Mr. Modi's strength is partly because of the opposition's weakness. I think a stronger opposition with a more robust leadership could offer him a huge challenge, especially post-COVID, because number of the promises Mr. Modi made have not been met. He said, I will double farm incomes. What happened? You haven't doubled farm incomes. The truth of the matter is you promised, that you're going to create, you're going to create far more employment. We can dispute whether he said 2 lakh jobs a year, but the fact is, he said, I'm going to build a more employable economy. It's not happened. SMEs have struggled post-COVID. That's the reality. Now, you need a stronger opposition that can bring this forward in a more coherent manner. So I think part of his success is because of the opposition's weakness. And I hope that, the opposition realizes that just as Mr. Modi has a lot of negatives, they also have negatives. The problem is that we are so polarized. Either, so if you're not with Modi, you're supposed to be with Rahul Gandhi. Yeah, but ye kya ho gaya? People will cut and slice what I have said to you. They will take, when I said vindictive, bellicose, all of that, dekho, anti-Modi hai.
They'll also cut, you said Modi is a remarkable politician. And say, see how Rajdeep has changed.
No, I have not changed. Look, I am an observer of politics, right? Now, when you're in power politics, and I don't think Mr. Modi claimed that he's not a power politician. You see, Rahul Gandhi says power is poison. Now, how can you be in politics and say, politics mein power to chahiye. He may not want it, but his party is desperate for it. Imagine you're a leader, you're a CEO of a company, and you're saying, no, I'm not interested in my balance sheet. But what about all your finance manager? They need the balance sheet. So, if I'm setting up I'm a CEO, then you set up a not-for-profit company. If you set up a not-for-profit company, you could probably still get away by saying, I'm not interested in what happens 3 months later to my company. But if you're the leader of the major opposition party and you start saying power is poison, we'll see I'm in a long-term, fight 15 years later, 20 years. These people want power today. They are not willing to wait for 15, 20 years. So there's a disconnect there. So I think, and let me be fair to Rahul Gandhi also. I think to be fair, his Bharat Jodo Yatra, the ideological conviction he showed on it, some of what he spoke about Mohabbat Ki Dukaan, these are all to be appreciated. It's not easy, Dhanya, being an opposition politician in India. Because because who knows, the ED will come knocking on your door tomorrow. One of the bizarreness, and I do that in detail in this book, while I didn't look at the Election Commission with detail, I look at the Enforcement Directorate with great detail. Because I am struck by the fact that the ED only seems to operate in opposition ruled states. Are you telling me money laundering only takes place in opposition ruled states? Come on. They are taking this country for a ride there. So I think, and Rahul Gandhi has raised some of these issues and consistently raised it and rightly raised it. When airport tenders and airport contracts are given to only one person, with no history in airport building, when suddenly a company which owns Mumbai airport, the country's most valuable airport, overnight gets raided, next day we hear that they've given the airport contract to another corporate. These are questions that are legitimate to ask. And Rahul Gandhi is right in raising them. Now, can he do more? Of course he should be doing more. He has to be a strategist, organizer. Mr. Modi's strength, that's where the remarkable politician, 50 saal politics mein kiye hain. Started off as a pracharak, state secretary, national general secretary, spokesperson, chief minister, and then a prime minister. That 50 years experience is very valuable for anyone in any profession. And I think that is one of his strengths, that he is able thereby to adapt to situations because he's seen it all over the years. Rahul Gandhi has had a relatively cotton-wooled existence. He's been cotton-wooled by contrast. So, these, as I said, these are complex issues. I hope that's why you need to write a book. You see, I think what happens on TV, ek taraf, main Rahul Gandhi ka supporter, dusri taraf Modi, they fight with each other, shout at each other. You and I are entertained over dinner. Some are not entertained also. But either way, some switch off straight away. But you see, it's more complex than that. In fact, as a final shot, parting shot, let me say, I recommend TV viewing in 2 circumstances. One, if there is someone in your family who has low blood pressure and you need blood pressure to rise. The second, if someone in your house is in coma and you need them to recover. Because there's a lot of noise.
I don't recommend for even this.
Even this, okay. No, but then you should read the News Minute. But, my sense is we have reduced complex issues. Even the Hindu-Muslim question is a very complex one. There is the rise of Islamic radicalism, but there's also the rise of this Hindu supremacist identity. And both are feeding on each other. And both, I think, are dangerous. And particularly because we are a Hindu country in terms of majority being Hindus, Hindus should understand the implications of that. So, these are complex issues that we want to reduce to black and white. Are you with Hindutva, not with Hindutva cannot be the answer. I think we need to find a better way to conduct our public discourse. Our public discourse is too polarized, even on WhatsApp groups. People leave WhatsApp groups if they don't agree with what somebody has said. Nobody wants to have a dialogue. There's a lovely word that Gulzar Saab, the great lyricist says. He said, this is a great country because yahan samvad hua karta tha, dialogue. You had conversations with each other. Now we don't converse. We shout at each other. And WhatsApp has made it even worse. I mean, one of the frightening aspects, Dhanya, since you mentioned media, but think about this. The day before the Maharashtra election, there was a WhatsApp doing the rounds that the Siddhi Vinayak temple is going to be taken by the Waqf board. And an aunt of mine rang me up, Rajdeep, is this true? I said, madam, no, but it's on WhatsApp. They're showing a video. I said, madam, these things, this fake. Now, this fake news is going to tens of thousands. Think of the impact it's having on minds. We live in very troubled times, which is why we need to step back, have a dialogue, find ways, conversations with each other. You and I need to do much more to, you particularly, me less, since you're still in the heart of it, to do much less to find ways to fight fake news. There's so much of disinformation going on today. And it's frightening when you think of it. So, that's what I want to say.
Thank you very much. So we need more conversations around complex issues, no more black and white. Thank you very much to everyone for joining in this conversation.
Mentioning COVID and all and the deaths and all. I keep mentioning it to all my science friends and everybody around. There is something called adverse drug reaction reporting. You are supposed to, if you have even an ointment, which you put on your skin and you have a reaction to it, you are supposed to file a report and it is supposed to be examined by the Drug Controller General of India. There have been so many deaths, cardiac deaths and other issues, which have murmurs related to the COVID vaccine. And when you have clinical trials, the COVID vaccine was passed in emergency clearance, fine. But clinical trials are in 4 types: phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4 is continuous trial. Any drug is on a continuous trial throughout its life and it is recalled if there is some error in it. There is no phase 4 clinical trial reporting. There is no adverse drug reaction reporting. And I don't know, the media is not picking up on this and not even questioning DCGI that where is the adverse drug reaction reporting.
Yeah, look, I mentioned in the sequencing, how much did we actually invest? We should have known, we should have prepared better for Delta, which was the wave that really caused the maximum deaths in this country. Had we had more investments in genome sequencing, and I mentioned the fights that were taking place at the top in the medical establishment of this country, we let our guard down. Let's be honest, between February and April of 2024, we were pretending as if the COVID war had been won, 2021. And it cost this country hugely. Now, you're right, media should be, we need better medical and science reporters, I think, when it comes to these issues. But yes, I couldn't agree with you more.
Actually, The Wire and The Quint did a lot of work, and they are facing so many litigations in court just for questioning this. Look at what is happening in Karnataka. We have had deaths in Bellary the last 2-3 weeks, and it seems that the drug was not of standard quality, and they were, though the government banned it, the court actually stayed the ban.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Next, yes.
I have 2 question comments type of thing. First one is, we kind of touched upon some of this, but my feeling is that ideology is really being trumped by handouts and caste. And second thing is, a lot of the things that you have mentioned in terms of problems with elections and politics in India is seeing all around the world.
Sure.
We're seeing over time, over multiple countries last 3 years, the debasing of liberal society, loss of liberal values, dilution of democracy. Why do you think this has happened? And is this a massive failure of left-leaning people?
Let me answer your first question, because I think you hit the nail which should worry us a lot. Because I think, you see, in Maharashtra, one of the X factors or the game changer was the 1,500 rupees given to women. More than 2 crore women got 1,500 rupees per month. By the end, including Diwali bonus, they got 7,500. Now, it's almost as if the politicians discovered women's empowerment 5 months before the election. Suddenly, we want to empower women. It's a handout. Some will call it a bribe. But think about it from the women's perspective. And one, typical, our rural minds are very sharp. One person told me, sir, I'm translating from Marathi. He said, sir, these netas make so much of money. Humko 1500 mil raha hai, what is her problem? You see, at least we are getting something. Then I said, but the other side is offering you now 3,000. He said, sir, ab to 1500 mila hai, 3,000 jab milega tab dekhenge. So the voter is becoming very transactional, and now every state is going to do this. Before elections, throw money, 2,000. Now look at the impact. Maharashtra has a 7.5 lakh crore debt. So your investments in productive issues like schools, hospitals, where we really need to invest. This country needs to invest in better schools and hospitals, right? That investment at some stage will take a hit if we continue to throw what you call freebies. But what is a freebie for you and me? For that lady in rural Amravati is a lifeline. Her husband has committed suicide because he didn't have a 1 lakh, he couldn't pay a 1 lakh loan. So that 1,500, very interestingly, I asked one group of ladies in Thane in Maharashtra, what have you done with this 7,500? He said, sir, we had a pizza party. First time, tumhala vatta tumhiच data Domino's la, आम्ही पण गेलो Domino. You see, Indians' aspirations are rising also. Aspirations are rising, so they are becoming transactional. Who will give me what benefit? Straight. Yes, so Dhanya says in Andhra Pradesh, it does. You see, one size will never fit all.
And
but
also,
it is. Yeah.
Sorry, but I also think, just one point, look at the BJP and the union government. They went to the Supreme Court against welfare measures. Their position in court is that they call it freebies. There is a word the Prime Minister
Revadi.
used. Revadi, yeah. I first thought it's an abuse. But yeah, that's the word, Revadi. So they take a position against that. But in Maharashtra, in Madhya Pradesh, they give that. In Jagan's case, and I feel across states the problem, when a voter becomes very transactional, you give me 1,500 rupees. Like, for example, Siddaramaiah has given free travel here, money here. They've already voted for him. So, you gave me money, you give me free bus ticket, I voted for you. Next election, I'm not going to vote for you for the same things. But you need to give me a new promise, a new transaction. So, I feel voters never vote in thanks. They always vote for something. This is just my rudimentary understanding after covering a few elections.
No, and I think it's partly because voters are feeling more and more frustrated. You see, for 5 years, nobody bothers about them. Suddenly at election, that's why I say India should have more elections. Election is the one time, it's good for my job also to have more elections, but I'm saying it's also the only time when there is some accountability. All the roads in Maharashtra, all were getting fixed only in the last 6 months. For 4 years, nobody was coming to fix many of the roads. Suddenly, investment was put in road. All the khaddas were being filled up. It's a strange way. Now, will the voter always vote on that? We don't know. There are other factors as well. The liberal point you make, sir, is well taken across the world. But what is liberalism? You see, that the classic liberalism means less state power. We want minimum government, maximum governance. Classic. Now what has happened, liberalism is associated with left. And there's a rise of the right. There's no doubt about it. We are seeing the rise of the right. In India, the problem is those who are actually right are not right-wing economically. They're not unleashing market forces. They still want government to run our lives. Their right-wing is more religious and cultural. In a classical way, they should be unleashing market forces. I've always believed this is the greatest entrepreneurial country if you unleash our forces. But today, even today, if I want to get permission to start a business, it's a hell of an effort. There will be somebody or the other police. There's still now GST inspectors. My friends in Mumbai say now GST inspectors are turning to be extortionists. They will send you a notice, want something. This is the danger. So you see, we are not a right, our rightward tilt that we talk about, or the sort of liberal withdrawal is not in terms of market forces or less state in our lives. It's actually more in terms of of religion playing a greater role. And I worry when religion plays such a big role in politics, because then it divides. See, religion is meant to unify and harmonize, but once in politics it enters, it divides. And that is what all of us at some stage should be worried about. Look at what happened to Pakistan. This country which sort of, both of us emerged same time, post the new India, new Pakistan, August 15. Now there will be Indians who will worry, say, no, but we are a civilizational society stretching to 1,000 years. Yes, Pakistanis will also tell you that. But an Islamic society like Pakistan has been destroyed by religion. Religion has destroyed that country. We need to ensure we don't go that way. Our constitution should be our holy book, in my view.
But at the economic cost, we're not getting our roads fixed because we don't have any money because of handouts. Second
One.
I asked this to your chief. I had an election here for 4.5 years. Now, where is that money going? Who is it going? In Maharashtra, interestingly, all the money that was even meant for road development was being given only to the MLAs of the ruling party. Now, how, in Mumbai, the money meant for Mumbai's development only went to the ruling party MLAs. Now, that is unacceptable. I am a voter. Whether I vote for A or B, why should I not get road development funds? And the other part is that the road development funds have also got now a rate card, where you give it to a favored contractor and the politician takes a certain amount of money. So it's, it's a more, and sometimes you deliberately give low quality because 2 years later you have to again get money out of that road. So there are roads in Mumbai that are being rebuilt every 2 years.
I have a question I forgot to ask.
Yes.
If I can just ask that quickly.
Dhanya, I think sir has to
very
go to
quickly.
the airport.
No,
I
it's
think-
fine.
Go ahead, please go ahead.
Because we spoke a lot in the media, how do you hold the media accountable? One suggestion that I recently heard is the EU Code of Conduct for the media. For example, a lot of your colleagues have also got fined for hate speech on the media itself, right? So once a 50,000 rupee fine, next 50,000, then increase it to 5 lakh, then 10 lakh. Would that be a deterrent?
The British are very good at this. They have a wonderful institution called Ofcom, which can even fine the BJP. Sorry, not the BJP, the BBC.
BBC.
I was thinking, which can also fine BBC. But it is independent. You see, you have a regulator in this country, it must become independent. It cannot be influenced then by any news channel or any government or any political party. If you can create that kind of an Ofcom-like regulator, which can even de-license you, it can remove your license. If you don't adhere to certain basic norms, if you spread hate speech, you have to spread fear in India to get things done sometimes. But the fear has to come from an independent regulator. Problem is most of our regulators are jobs given for those who have been helpful to whoever is in power. Most of the benefits come to them. Now that's not the basis of a regulatory power. We need regulation, but proper, strict, tough regulation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rajdeep Sardesai ji, for this fascinating and quite insightful session. On behalf of the foundation and team, I would like to express my sincerest gratitude to you and to Dhanya for this beautiful, invigorating conversation. Along with my fellow Ehsaas Woman of Bengaluru, Revathi Raju, I would like to thank our audience for being here with us on a Sunday afternoon. A big clap for yourselves. Today we are pleased to felicitate our esteemed guests with the ethnic Lucknowi chicken curry known as the regal signature handloom of the Nawabs. Can I please call upon Anil Kathotia ji to felicitate Rajdeep ji? A big round of applause for sir. Thank you. सर साम दाम दंड भेद का आपसे और बाद में और सुनेंगे, बहुत अच्छा लगा सुन के डिटेल में.
ये दाम
थैंक यू.
नहीं है.
हाँ, ये दाम नहीं है. यस सर.
Thank you, sir.
Can I now call Gurudas ji Shenoy to felicitate Dhanya Rajendran? Also a round of applause for Dhanya for having such an amazing conversation. Thank you and good day to everyone.
I just want to thank Sandeep ji and Anandita and the
Yes.
Prabha Khaitan Foundation and Ehsaas that you all give us these spaces to speak so freely. And that's why I believe democracy in this country should be strengthened. We are not China. We can speak, talk to each other, maybe have conversations. I think there should be conversations. You may have a different viewpoint, but samvad jari rahe. You know, we can be whatever our political views, as long as we speak to each other, not at each other, we can build a better India.